And we're live, baby. I thought we were done with this, but when you got two commissioners left in the playoffs, we just want to keep talking about it. Tom Bauer, how are you?
Doing great, had a nice week myself. I got kind of two different paths to victory, but we're here and record this one. And just with the holidays and whatnot, this might be the last one unless I can record one out in the boondocks. But yeah, uh, quite the week. We got a lot to discuss on the show. We got losers bracket kind of update. We got first round recaps, and then the big part is we're going to look ahead to this week's semifinals. But yeah, what a weekend, and for 11 of the 12 members, it was an awesome weekend. So
That's correct. Yes, we'll talk about it shortly, but the juggernaut has fallen. The Empire pot lives on. We all owe you OT. How do you say it?
OTPHJ.
There we go. Thank you. Thank you. So,
Yeah,
yeah, not sure.
Could just
Go
said
ahead.
Texas only, man, but
We could do those too. Maybe if we meet in the finals, we'll exchange overhands for good luck. But not sure how many people are still engaged in listening to this, but you should be. There's still plenty on the line, which we'll of course get into. But it's fun, man. Playoff and there was some tense moments. Some of it I didn't get to see all of it, but the moments that counted, I was in tune for, and the sweat was on. Yours not so much, but we'll talk through those matchups here shortly. But we'll pull up the brackets here and
yeah,
talk
let's
about what's going on.
yeah, let's take a look at the losers bracket first, just to kind of obviously everyone's competing for a first round draft position there, and um, we I think Broik was considered the favorite going into the losers bracket, and his team, performed pretty well. He's got a lead, and for 3 weeks, 15 points can be, quite a difference. But kind of looking like it might be a three-team race right now for that first pick. Mortel's, within striking distance, but he's going to need a big performance here. But Broik goes 126.24 there. Chase Brown and Mike Evans carried his team, so that he's gonna be tough to beat for that number one pick. He's got a high-powered team still, and then coming in at number two, Mr. Kelly Dog, Jameer Gibbs, big week. Devontae Smith, big week. Xavier Worthy was a good start. He's in second place, and that includes getting a goose egg from Cooper Kupp. So
Right.
I think Kelly Dog's gonna. I think that's a good race between those two because Kelly Dog's got some players. Just hasn't really had the luck of health for a lot of the year. And then Costell comes in at number three, 106.7. James Cook and CeeDee Lamb were huge for him. Keenan Allen also kind of came on late in that Vikings game and got the garbage time touchdown. So he's, only 20 points back. So he is still within striking distance. And then it goes to fourth place. We got Mr. Ryan Mortel. Baker Mayfield pretty much carried his
Wow.
team. Didn't get
28
production
points, yeah.
there, but he's right there, and he's got Jerome Ford sitting on his bench now, and with Nick Chubb out for the year, that's a player he can insert right into his starting lineup right away. So he's not out of it by any means. And then we get to fifth and sixth place, and this is kind of where these guys are probably, that's a lot to overcome in 2 weeks to get that number one pick, but maybe they can catch another guys. We got Mr. Ryan Jenny, 79.46. It's been a rough year for him. Had Braylon Allen, who got hurt and didn't do much. Jordan Love was all right. ETN had an okay game, but just not a lot of production. And then he's got Tajay Spears and Jalen McMillan sitting on his bench with 40 points, so that hurts. Not sure why McMillan wasn't in your starting lineup personally, Jenny, but you know what? You do you. But with Spears, he might be getting a bigger role here with Tony Pollard battling some injuries. McMillan will probably get put into his starting lineup, and he's actually playing the better Chiefs tight end, so he's got that going for him. And then bringing up the rear, the guy who missed the playoffs by basically, with me winning it, knocked him out. Nick Hanahan just, got a goose egg from Waddle. Chargers defense had a rough outing. Charbonnet didn't go off. I mean, he had some okay games, but just too many low point potentials, and didn't really have much on his bench. He had Singletary, who got 11 points, but that's a tough guy to start when he's kind of the secondary back there in New York. So
Yeah, and he already has Tyrone Tracy. You're not going to start both of those guys. So for them, for those two, for Hanrahan and Jenny, now it's all about fending off the losers from the playoff round. Who, Laska scored 104. Lawson's obviously big score, big week last week is Josh Allen. So he's going to be putting up consistent weeks. It's definitely not out of the realm for these guys to be caught over the course of the next 2 weeks. So,
yeah,
and
if Wassens he keeps putting up 130 plus like he has here for a little bit now. He could catch a lot of people. I mean, he could definitely catch those two, and then I think it would take some pretty big clunkers for um, some of the other guys. But Lawson's has gone last 3 weeks. He's gone 143, 131, 140. So
yeah, and we've seen in the draft a lot of years with the keepers and everything, there's that cutoff between like picks 4 and 5, somewhere in there. There seems to be a tier break of really elite players available. So getting into those top 4 or 5 by jumping some of these, that's huge.
yeah, I mean, last year you saw it. Leon was able to get Saquon. But I think he was fourth place, so that obviously was a pick. But like Broik swapping spots with Costell, and all of a sudden he gets Jamar Chase versus AJ Brown, and what a difference that makes for a team. Um, you know, the first round is much deeper than it used to be, and we've had a lot of guys that were big
Yep.
hits early on in their career, and they have now reached that first round status. But still, you like to be able to have your pick of the litter versus having to all right, well, 4 guys I really wanted went, so just by my board and the rankings, I'll take this guy. It's so can be big. Plus, it's fun and keeps everyone at least with a little something to play for.
Yeah, still a lot to be decided here for sure. So, where do you want to go next? You want to look at
Let's go take just a quick little recap. We can go through we can do that at the end, the playoff predictions. But quick little recap of the two playoff matchups on the winner's side. We'll go to mine first. Just because it wasn't all that exciting of a matchup, even though the league and the prediction side was pretty much split down the middle. And obviously, Alaska came in trying to get that Empire pot. He had some big time hitters on his team, and ultimately they just didn't really perform up to their normal standards. Derrick Henry was less than 7 points. Mari Cooper, goose egg. Hopkins didn't do anything, which we knew that was his weakness, was his receivers, and his
Yeah, it
receivers,
really showed.
3 receivers combined for 11.2 points.
11.2 points out of 3 receivers. That's brutal. And a Cooper in a 48-point outing. Obviously, a lot of that went to James Cook and Josh Allen, but you would have
Yeah,
thought he could have got involved somehow. But
yeah.
even if
Yeah,
he had a decent game, it didn't much matter.
and
But
he didn't have any bench players that did anything, so it's not like he was in danger of a BTB. And then ultimately, it didn't really matter because my team just had one of those rare weeks where everyone decided to go off. It started kind of, after both of us kind of had an okay Thursday night game. I got 12 from a running back. He got 8 from a tight end. Still anybody's matchup. And then it's kind of right around like the halftime mark, late first half, early second half is where my team just like caught fire in that noon window. T. Higgins caught a long touchdown that got him. He had a good game, and then Devonte Adams absolutely went off. And I told you that Devonte Adams was going to break Laska's heart,
yeah,
and he did. Now I thought it was going to be like a close win, and something he did was going to be it, but destroyed him. And then my team carried the momentum into those afternoon games. That Buffalo Detroit shootout came to fruition, and Jared Goff had himself a big old day. James Conner had a big game. McBride had a great game, and I just had a great week. And honestly, I was a little nervous at first just because I had Brian Thomas in my starting lineup until like 11:58, 11:59, and I put Jonathan Taylor in last minute. I just thought he was a safer play. Brian Thomas is going against the Jets. I it's not that I didn't. I think Brian Thomas is a really good player, but I didn't know, and I was looking really really dumb there for a while. I mean, Jonathan Taylor dropped a touchdown too, so like that makes it even worse. Fortunately, I was so far up, but yeah, just a big time week. And other than Mooney, I mean, I wasn't even considering starting Debo, so that wouldn't matter. But Thomas, Bucky Irving, Janu, bench performed. So it's one of those weeks where it didn't matter who I started, I was winning, and it was nice to take down Laska. Empire Pot, big shit talker. It was nice to humble him. Um, Felt good. Gonna get him a sweatshirt with some sleeves for Christmas. And yeah, just
Yeah,
good performance by my team, and we got to keep it going. We got a tough matchup lying ahead.
yeah. So you 184.76 is your final score there. That eclipsed the season high by about 30. 28 to 30 points, so that's fantastic. So Laska's reign at the Empire Pot began with you taking a shit in his toilet, and it ended with you taking a shit on his team. So well done.
It's called foreshadowing. But
Yeah, so that one wasn't particularly close.
we'll get to yours, but here's because Alaska was like, I almost would rather, he's like, we had lostness issues. And I was like, really? Like, I would rather just, all right, you know what? I just chalk it up to your team having a great week. Like, nothing I could do, nothing I could have done differently. I lost. Easier to accept.
Yeah.
We'll get to your matchup because, this one was a crazy game and just a heartbreaking loss on one side and ultimate glory on the other.
Yeah, really to kind of set the stage on this one, this could have been over much sooner had I had AJ Brown in my lineup. So just to give a little justice to this potential big time blunder, couple just down weeks in a row. The sentiment in Philly was a little rough after the last outing. Looking back, that maybe should have been the squeaky wheel, right? That they're going to really grease him up, which they did. He had plenty of targets, plenty of catches. I figured playing a tough Pittsburgh defense, and then you look at the options I had with Jawan Jennings, Amon Ra, you're not sitting him. JSN, been on a tear. Terry McLaurin, been on a tear. So it's like, it's close. I was in and out. I had him, I was going to wait till like the 3 o'clock window. I was out guiding, hunting, and I had some clients with me that they didn't want to take a break. So where I was just on my phone a little bit. And okay, I put him in and then I took him back out. But long story short, it ended up working out by about 0.62 points. I didn't get to watch much of it. I did get a hype call on my drive home from you, and that was when the tides changed. Right, that's when Amon Ra had that big touchdown, went streaking down the middle, got into the end zone to really blow things up. But it came down to the final game on Sunday night with JSN needing 12 point something points. 12.7 points, which he's more than capable of. And it looked like it was going to be a no doubter. And then Geno Smith gets hurt. And it looks like, who's their backup?
Howell.
Sam Howell comes in. And I'm like, dude, this guy might not ever get a pass off to anyone ever again. And got just enough on one of their final drives. But this thing was all over. I think I was up early. And then obviously, Josh Allen came and was Superman, 41 points. The Chiefs' defense with 21, so some solid games there. Malik Neighbors randomly showing up again, 19.2. That's his highest scoring week since week 3?
2 and 3. Yeah.
So, but yeah, this is an all timer. Like I feel for you, lost this. It's a tough loss. It was just all-time fantasy football playoff battle.
Could Lostness, does he have anyone on his bench that he could have played that would have made a difference?
Bench looks a little rough here.
Yeah, so no BTBs. You weren't gonna, and obviously you could have a random guy go on. Actual consideration doesn't really matter, but yeah, nothing he could have done there. Just a tough loss, but heck of a season lostness. Josh Allen, unbelievable run right now.
Poor
Just,
Tyreek, man, 4.6 points. So definitely disappointing. He was probably feeling pretty confident in him after a couple good games back to back here from Tyreek Hill, and then having that dud.
Well, yeah, I mean, it didn't help that the Dolphins' two starting tackles were ruled out before the game, going against a Houston defense that, while they haven't maybe lived up to the hype I think they had coming into the year, with having Daniil Hunter and Will Anderson, when it just comes to pure pass rushing, those guys they can still get after you, and I think that just influenced Miami's offense so much. Just too under pressure and wasn't able to have as many of his quick hitters to Tyreek, and Derek Stingley kind of was covering Tyreek. I think he came up with 2 interceptions. So
yeah, and did Joe Mixon? I know did he leave the game early?
he got hurt. I think he returned at one point, but he did get hurt. He kind of had one of those hip drop tackles that's supposed to be a penalty. It wasn't called. Yeah, tough break there because he's one of the fantasy MVPs of the season when you consider where he was drafted. I think it was like 3rd round or end of the 2nd round.
Yeah,
because he also got neighbors right around there, so it's one or the other. But had been a stud for most of the year. Had that epic performance against Leon that really proved to be a huge win for Lostness because he would have been could have been in danger of missing out on a playoff spot if not for that. But yeah, great season. Just epic shootout. I mean, that's what we want. We want close games. We want every catch, every run. We want every play to matter. And you couldn't have drawn up a better way to kick off the 2024 playoffs.
Yeah, and definitely a top 3 or 4 team, I would say, in the league right now. Unfortunately, their season ends, but like you mentioned, hell of a run lost this. So keep fighting for those points. Move up in the draft.
Yep, and that'll take us to kind of the main event. We're looking at some semifinal matchups. We got the 1 seed Molar Bears taking on me in the 1-5 matchup, and then we got a 2-6 matchup. So by seed, 2 upsets in the first round. So we'll see if that continues here into the semis, or if the guys that have been performing all year and earned that crucial bye, if they can show why they were there. And I think let's just kick it off with Molar Bears and Kidney Club. JP, obviously the 1 seed regular season champ, missed the playoffs last year. Only time he's ever missed it. Right back to the top of the league. Had a really good team. I think we had mentioned in last week's show. If you go back to like week 4, his lowest score since then has been like 99 points. So one of those teams that, and he kind of gets production throughout the lineup. There's not one guy that, 1 or 2 guys he's heavily reliable on. He gets, just production up and down the lineup. And that's why his team has that high floor and very good team. But he unfortunately just he had some key injuries here that could play a big role. And he's got, a quarterback change that we don't know how that's going to impact a couple of his guys. And then on my side, it's kind of like, the team's hot right now. We've won 5 straight, and kind of like JP, I'm getting production up and down the lineup. Obviously, last week I had a lot of booms, but if you go look back during this winning streak I'm on, I think I've scored over 120 points for 5 straight weeks. So, I think it's just a battle of 2 very balanced teams, and yeah, that's what do you think?
Yeah, kind of, there's been some chatter in our group chat about JP being done, losing a guy like David Montgomery is terrible at this time. He's been very consistent. You kind of know what you're going to get from him. He's basically going to score about every game, but there's still plenty of firepower left on this squad. There is a bit of rockiness, I would say, especially with Bijan is getting that quarterback change that you mentioned, but he's playing the Giants, so I think he's still going to have probably a pretty good game. Chuba Hubbard is now he's the man, right, in Carolina. I think he what did he do last week? A little bit down, but I think didn't Dallas kind of control that game
Yeah,
a little
Carolina
bit,
just couldn't get anything going on offense.
but Arizona you can run on them a little bit, so that's a favorable matchup. Cortland Sutton against the Chargers, I would say that's kind of ho hum. Bo Nix is starting to look a little bit worse, but Sutton is certainly capable of getting it done. I don't think this will be a boom game for him, so I put him just about it as average. But you look at Puka, who's been just unbelievable, capable of things like 35 points. The Jets are allegedly supposed to have a good passing defense. We'll see if that comes to fruition or not. Tucker Kraft, whatever. Drake London, again, with Atlanta, that's a big question mark for me. Like we get to see if this Penix guy can throw the ball. Be interesting. Again, playing the Giants, not a great defense there. DJ Moore gets Detroit. Could be I don't know. Detroit's weird. So I would say it's like half and half. Half these guys have good matchups. The other half have average or below average matchups. As far as the decisions to be made here, Pickens, I think he missed last week.
Yeah, he's missed a couple weeks in a row now, I think.
Okay. Could potentially be back, and that'd be a guy that you'd have to consider against Baltimore, who tends to give up some passing yards to receivers because Baltimore is typically scoring a lot of points. So that could be a potential decision made, maybe starting him over Drake London with the uncertainty, but that would be for him to decide there. On your side of the coin, just very balanced. I don't think Goff touches what he touched against
No.
Buffalo because he won't have to. That's going to be a lower scoring game. James Conner against Carolina, got to love that matchup, right? James Conner should, and this will be like if he continues, this will be his first like full season. He's no injuries, played every game, just a workhorse, man. Kyron against the Jets, you can run on the Jets a little bit. Devontae's been on a tear, so they're in the same game there. I think Cincinnati against Cleveland just shits all over them. Hopefully, it's not too much too early where they don't need to pass the ball. Will Trey McBride get his first touchdown? It feels like they're trying to force that in. And then you got Brian Thomas, Bucky Irving back in the lineup. They were on your bench last week, so you currently have Jonathan Taylor and Jordan Addison on the bench, which are probably in consideration. Darnell Mooney is not. Jonnu Smith, you're not going to play him over McBride. So I do give you the slight edge here, 5-6 point edge. But it's going to be, all these people saying JP's done. It's not over yet, man.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at his lineup, I mean, he's got guys. I mean, you were talking about like, Cortland Sutton. I don't see a boom game, but he doesn't. JP has never needed boom games. He's just Cortland
Right.
Sutton's had double digits every single week since week 7, right? So he's a good play. DJ Moore has kind of been. I mean, at the they were running it with him. They were kind of just finding ways to get the ball in that guy's hands. Last time he played against the Lions, he had almost 20 points.
Yeah.
So he's a good play. Puka has been an absolute stud, and the Rams are competing for both not just a playoff spot but also a division title. They're on the road against the Jets, who, like I said, supposedly have a good pass defense. I think it's overrated. I mean, you saw what Brian Thomas did to him last week. Yeah, I think with Pickens, that's going to be a key storyline to watch because he's been out with a hamstring. Pittsburgh's in a good spot for a playoff spot and a division title. Obviously, this is like a big rivalry, with Baltimore. But is Pittsburgh looking at this in the long term? Like, if we rest him one more week, so that'll be key. Losing David Montgomery hurts. He wasn't going to get you. There wasn't too many boom games. He had two performances over 20 points all year. But he had one game this year before this past week that he had less than double digits, and that was against the Vikings.
Yeah.
Other than that, you kind of knew you were going to get, you know, 13, 14 points guaranteed. And that's a great, you got to love that. You got to love that when he's not your bell cow back on your team. You just can pencil in, hey, I'm getting 12, 13 right here. Just need some other help from other guys. Tucker Kraft, I think, unfortunately, I think Zach Ertz got a concussion. He'd kind of been Jaden Daniels' safety net. He had been, 3 weeks before last week, double digits every week, and then the tight end position, that is a win. You'll take that every
That's
single week. Tucker Kraft, he is the epitome of a boom bust guy. He's a beast from South Dakota, and he can he can turn it on. He's gonna be on Monday Night Football. Super amped up. He'll be the last guy going, so he could be the determining factor. But I think it all comes down to Brock Purdy. We haven't really touched on. He's kind of just been. He's against Chicago, he had a good week. The 2 weeks outside of that, he was terrible. Um, Seattle and Tampa Bay, pretty good. I think quarterback wise, like if he can just get that, 18 to 20 points, he's got to be pretty pumped. That's kind of how I am with Jared Goff. Like, he's not the flashiest. He's not going to get your rushing touchdowns, but just give me a decent number. Just don't put up, a 5, 6, 7 point game. But I think it all comes down. I think Atlanta is the most intriguing thing with Michael Penix there. I agree. I think Bijan, like I heard some other fantasy experts, worry that this is going to have a negative impact on him. And maybe that brings more players into the box trying to limit him, but then you would think that would open up with Drake London and their passing game. Penix, yes, he's a rookie, but he is probably I think a lot of draft experts said he throws the best deep ball, so they get more explosive with him under center. It's at home. So
they might just try to open it up and see what he has, right? Like they might draw up 5 deep balls to Mooney and London, and if 2 of those hit, it's like okay.
It's all these people saying JP season's over. It's like, well, there's a reason why this guy's the 1 seed, and then you go look. We just went through his lineup, and everyone just kind of no superstars by any means. I think Bijan's about as close as they get, but I think even in the running back tier, there's kind of like there's a Saquon, Derrick Henry, and Kamara tier, and then there's kind of and maybe Josh Jacobs. But then after that, there's kind of a drop off. But he's still, double digits every week, but 1 over the last, 9 weeks. Just a lot of depth here, and I think JP and I we run into similar decisions because we do have deep teams, maybe not as much firepower at the top end as others, but it comes down to your start sit decisions. It's a good problem to have, but it can be excruciating trying to figure out who to start because one wrong move could cost you at this time of the year. But I don't know. It's going to be a big week. He's got Sutton going Thursday night. He's got Tucker Kraft on Monday night. Everyone else, I think, is like a noon game for him besides Purdy. So he'll kind of, he'll have Purdy and Kraft sitting there, and then everyone on my team is a noon game. Oh, sorry. Or most of my guys are noon, and then I got a late Brian Thomas, Bucky Irving Sunday night, which hopefully, I get that notification that he is, active, like no expectations, because that's kind of a risky move there. And then I got the Packers defense going Monday night. So it'll be Packers defense versus Tucker Kraft Monday night. That could be the deciding factor. So I think this is going to be a really good game. Like I just, JP's team is just really solid, and he's got some guys there that I feel higher than others, but DJ Moore, Puka Nakua, Bijan, and then I think Chuba. I think he'll have a bounce back game after a rough goal there. And that Cardinals Panthers game will be a fun one. A lot of I got 2 guys in that matchup. So yeah, it's gonna be a barn burner. Like I said, I don't think JP is out of it. I think his team is just too solid, top to bottom. To like, I think this. I don't know if it'll be quite as epic as you and Lostness, but I have a feeling that this is going to be a very close matchup, and I wouldn't be shocked if it comes down to that Monday night where maybe one of us needs to outscore the other by 6, 7 points one way or the other, and we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah, and you both have, we don't talk about fantasy football defenses a lot, but you both have really good plays here. JP's got Falcons against the Giants, who are starting, was it Danny DeVito right now?
No, I think they're going back to Drew Lock this week.
Back to Drew Lock, so whoever it is, some guy. Now, Falcons don't have a great defense. They're 26 overall, but Packers against New Orleans, they got a backup quarterback there as well.
And they could
So
be
that'll be
potentially without Alvin Kamara.
so there
Which
you go.
I think
So
that'd be pretty significant. And the Packers defense has been playing really well of late. They obviously turned Geno over a few times last week.
yeah,
That was a mental play. I played on Alaska. I picked up his favorite team's defense just so he would be pumped that his favorite team came up with a big play. But if our matchup was close, he'd be devastated because that'd be points for me. And didn't end up working out that way. But yeah, I think this is gonna be a fun game to watch, and we'll see. Regular season champ, the hottest team since week 4 versus one of the two hottest teams. I'd say me and Lostness right now, just in terms of you look at, I've been doing it for 5 weeks, Lostness last 3 weeks, and he just got unlucky that he ran into you. If the seeding would have worked out differently, where I was playing you and he got Alaska, he'd be moving on. But it's just why every week still matters and every point matters. So
that's exactly right. So
and
yeah, this is hell of a matchup here.
Yeah, and then we go into the other semifinal. It's the Texas Overhands who, squeaked by losses, taking on Leon, the 2 seed.
By the way, I
Leon,
just looked back today and I started the season 1 and 5.
yeah, and we
And
still
it was
had you high up in power rankings
we
because
did. We
your
did. And
team was
I was
scoring so much.
we were scoring. Yeah, ended up being the second highest scoring team in the league behind JP by a handful of points. But here we go, taking on Dr. Clark. He was the champ was it 2 years ago?
2 years ago, and then lost in the semis last year
Right
to
back in the semis
Alaska, I
again.
believe.
Yep.
I think he lost to Alaska in the semis last year. So Leon's, he kind of had a few down years there fantasy wise, and then he has rediscovered his mojo and he is back, and you know, third consecutive semifinal appearance. I think him and I are both on that same streak there, and both of him and I both looking to get to our another championship game. You're looking to end a long championship game appearance drought. JP won it the year before Leon, so he's not it's good matchup. But yeah, let's I'll let you kind of give, just kind of some general thoughts, then I'll kind of go through, each of the players that I think and see what you guys say.
Yeah, for sure. I think Leon's team overall is, I would say, trending a bit down with Saquon. He has kind of been, he was really ripping. He had 30 points in 3 out of 4 at one point. Had just 8.4 against Pittsburgh, tough defense. He does get Washington. I'm just not, he could come back and totally take the game over, but if Jalen Hurts and AJ Brown on the other side of that game, like, that's going to be super interesting. Is it going to be more of a pass heavy game versus a run heavy game? That's going to be one huge part of this matchup, and that's a nooner. So a lot of this matchup is going to come down to that. The other thing going the wrong way for this team, I would say, is Brock Bowers. The last 2, he's been a great find, number 1 tight end on the year. Last 2 weeks have been down. Jacksonville's a nice matchup, but that Raiders team seems to be a bit of a mess at the moment. You get Lamar Jackson against the Steelers. He was on the road, 14 points. This time it's at home. Sometimes those divisional matchups get a little bit weird, a little more low scoring. Pittsburgh with Mike Tomlin, they probably know how to play against them to match it up. So I like that matchup from my side of the coin. But still a lot of good players on this team. But I think we said it last week, like a big issue with this team, like Lasca's, is the receiver, right? You're rolling out DK Metcalf, Calvin Ridley, Romeo Dobbs. He did have a nice week last week, all of a sudden, like out of the blue, 17.5 points. Gets New Orleans, which is a decent matchup. On the bench, you're not really considering Ray McLeod with a quarterback change. You're probably not considering Pittman. He is getting Urendo. He did play on Thursday. He looked okay. Got most of the work. Just the Niners couldn't get much going against the Rams there, but against Miami this week. So that's definitely in the benefit of Leon here. On the other side, just a lot of decent plays this week. I don't know if I'm going to get 140 again, but I think I can touch 125. And I don't know. I think Leon would need some help getting there. I have him more at 115 to 120. It's going to be another close one. I do have AJ Brown plugged back into the lineup. Start sit decisions on my end. Kenneth Walker, if he is active, he gets the Vikings, who have not given up much on the ground throughout the season. So I think he's still going to be on the bench. And then I got Jawan Jennings against the Dolphins, potentially switching him out. But I think he's probably the odd man out of my receivers group with St. Brown, AJ Brown, and Scary Terry and JSN. So I think this lineup's pretty set as is. I think it's going to be close. I think I have a slight edge. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think the most interesting part about this matchup is there's two games. There's the Philadelphia Washington game. You have Hurts and AJ Brown going. He's got Saquon. Now, last time they played Washington, that's one of those 30-point games he got from Saquon. And maybe after kind of showing that they can pass the ball, this past week, maybe they are, we got to get this running game going though too. Like we got to get balanced. So that'll be an interesting matchup. And then the Baltimore Pittsburgh one, yeah, Mike Tomlin. I'd be curious if I could go look back at the last 5 or 6 matchups between the Ravens and Steelers. I mean, I feel like all those games are always kind of those lower scoring games.
Yeah.
Obviously, with Lamar there, it's a little more exciting offense, but that was his worst output of the season. Now that was on the road. They're back home. They got a lot to play for still, because they beat Pittsburgh. I don't know. I don't know if they're one game behind or a couple, but that at least gets them closer to their division title. So I think that'll be a key one. And yeah, I mean, the difference is you have a lot of options to choose from, which I kind of mentioned with me and JP. That's a great problem to have, but it can be a hard problem to have because you got to figure out what is the correct lineup. Leon, unfortunately, just due to injury and then just not having a very deep bench, this is kind of his lineup. If I know Metcalf is questionable, I don't think that'll have any impact. But Garendo popped up with a hamstring injury, which it was a foot injury. The foot and hamstring is what they were saying. He was out, missed practice on Wednesday. So that'll be interesting to keep an eye on because if he's active, obviously, we've seen what a San Francisco running back can do. We've seen what Garendo did when he was the guy, and
Hey, listen to
so that'll
this.
be key.
Let's listen to this. So the last several Pittsburgh-Baltimore game total scores, 18 to 16, 17 to 10, 10 to 17, 16 to 13, 16 14, 16 13, 19. So they tend to be a bit lower scoring.
Lower scoring, and so that kind of puts a ceiling typically on what Lamar, who guys averaging 25 and a half points a game, that kind of puts maybe it limits his upside. He's still Lamar. You're starting him. He's the dude. But yeah, so I think that Grendel will be key. And then for Leon, Brock Bowers, Aiden O'Connell sounds like he might be back. And at least he's a better option than Desmond Ritter for him. So maybe he gets a little bounce back there. Calvin Ridley gets Mason Rudolph. And I believe when Mason Rudolph was kind of starting there, I think that's when you saw that 15 target game, 8 targets, 9 targets.
And I think Levis came back against the Vikings. I think Rudolph was the games before that. And so you saw
Okay.
a little bit more production for, Ridley then. And then DK Metcalf, the Vikings secondary is beatable. We've seen it all year. Although they have been playing a little bit more man coverage of late, and that seems to be working, but that's more just with not having Gilmore in. They kind of the guys they have are better at man coverage. Gilmore obviously just being a little older, he's going to be a zone
And
guy.
I think Geno Smith he practiced today, so I
Yeah,
think he's
I'm
probably
fully
gonna
I'm
go.
fully expecting Geno to be back. I mean, just they're competing for a playoff spot. Uh,
Yeah, you get
I
JSN versus Metcalf in the.
yeah,
That's a fun
that'll be
one.
a fun one too. I think if Geno's out though, that's going to be like I said, you have more depth, so I think that would
Yeah, I
be
could
in
put in Jawan
you
Jennings.
and JSN's more of their kind of quick screens, slants. So it's a little more involved. Or DK is kind of their big play guy, but yeah, I mean I think if I had to give an edge, I would give it to you. But like kind of like with Laska, Leon needs his dudes to be dudes, and if they're not dudes, then I think Tlougan, I think you'd be moving on. AJ Brown and Hertz is a lethal stack. They got back in sync last week. Scary Terry has been unreal, just absolutely unreal. Good to see because he's a really good receiver. He just had freaking dick for quarterback for so much of his career.
Yeah,
Um, so he's obviously a must play. Amon Ra, is he going to have that big of a performance? No. Like, I mean, one, the game script probably isn't going to be there. Last time they played Chicago, he just had about, less than 10 points. And that was kind of a 3-week stretch there where he was just a little, just wasn't finding the end zone and wasn't getting his double digit targets. So, if he's not going to find the end zone, he's got to be heavily targeted. But he's, obviously a very, very good wide receiver. And then, Rico Dowdle, he's been, since the Cowboys finally anointed him as kind of their lead guy, he has proven that he is more than capable, double digits, 3 straight weeks. You'd like to see a little bit more pass game in there. They're going against a Tampa team that just lit the Chargers defense up last week. Baker and those guys, they're a fun team to watch. You just hope Dallas can keep it close enough that Dowdle is able to, they're going to be running the ball. But if they are throwing it, then you need to get that pass work. Otherwise, that could be one of those matchups that might, hurt you. Just because if Tampa Bay gets rolling and Dallas all of a sudden has to play catch up, maybe that limits Dowdle. But yeah, I
right.
mean, Leon needs a big game from Saquon. He needs Lamar to kind of break out of his Steelers funk, and then he's going to need one other big time performance, and who that comes from is kind of the unknown. I would think Garendo would be kind of the guy I would look at if
Right.
he's healthy and starting. I think that changes this matchup, and defensive wise, Leon's starting the Lions against the Bears, who obviously aren't a very good offense. But the Lions defense has gotten shredded the last couple of weeks. They have had so many injuries. -5 last week, two against
Yeah.
Green Bay. They had 6 against Chicago last time they played, but they were a healthier defense. And speaking of the Lions defense, they lost Aleem McNeil. He's one of their really good D tackles, kind of the anchor of their run defense going against DeAndre Swift. Maybe that plays a factor. So see if he makes any changes with that. Maybe he sees another defense that he likes the matchup better. But definitely an interesting one. And yeah, I mean, I think your team, you're kind of like, I'd say you, me, and JP. I mean, are all similar, and then we just have very deep teams. I think you have much more like high end firepower than either of us. And then I think Leon, he's very much like Laska, where he's got superstars and then not a lot, at least not yet, that have shown up all year. So be interesting. But yeah, I think you should be favored. I don't pay too much attention to those ESPN projections. Obviously, they think it's going to be really close. I think I'd say you're probably about like a 10-point favorite in my book.
Yeah, that seems right. Obviously, we don't know until we play the game. Do we have any?
And then I
Let's
think,
see. I don't in a night game or anything
yeah,
Sunday.
he has Dobbs going Monday night. You have Dowdle going Sunday night.
Okay.
Um,
He's got a standalone Lamar Jackson Saturday game.
yeah. So you got a lot of, you have Andrews going. Oh, that's another thing. You have Andrews. So if Lamar's going
Yeah.
to throw touchdowns, or
Go with the Andrews, baby.
can Andrews, limit? Can he catch the touchdowns? That'd be, that would hurt Leon. So if Lamar can have a big game, maybe it's just with his legs or to our boy Rashad Bateman. But yeah, that's kind of how I think. I think your matchup. I think you're a heavier favorite than me and JP's. I think I'd say I'm a slight favorite against JP, but I just think I think his team's deep enough where I think it's going to be a really close matchup. So I'd say I'm probably like a 3.5-point favorite, and you're like a 10.5-point favorite, and I would not be opposed to having a Commissioner's Cup for the championship, but your team scares me too. So
Well, I mean, you're the hottest team in the league, so your team's scary as well. So losers of these matchups go on for the third place game. They got $150 on the line for that, and then obviously the winners go on for all the glory, and the winner of that will become the most hated person in the league for the next year as they try to defend the Empire Pot and everyone else tries to take them down. So I think I sent in the text. Next year you'll be fighting for $1,200 on the Empire Pot side of things. So that'd be great.
yeah, whoever wins, that is a that's a nice sum of money.
That's
Plus,
not bad.
then winning, if you win the league title too, I mean that's like $2,000. I would sign up for that in a heartbeat.
I'm in.
Yeah, finally, let's
Also,
go take a look. Go ahead.
I'll just say one thing. If it's a lot easier if you or I win, because then we can just go to Alaska's house because we live in Minnesota to grab the trophy.
True.
No shipping involved.
And then we can make him host again as the non-champion.
I think I declared that like several weeks ago that if I win, I choose Alaska. Thank you.
I'm just gonna
All
make
right.
him wear a Vikings jersey though. But yeah, let's take a look at our playoff predictions. We had 9 of the 12 guys submit, and 5 guys with perfect predictions week 1. Me, Jenny, Kelly, Costell, and JP. Broik just sieved it up by going 0 for 2. And then Alaska lost to Tlougan. You guys picked Alaska. Not sure why, but you did. And
I wanted to get just one wrong, That's all.
But yeah, Broik, he's gonna need some. I don't know if he's gonna be getting the gift card this year. 2 points, 3 points already gone. You and me cannot be in his losers bracket, so that eliminates points. So, tough look there. Hanrahan's in the last right now, so if you have him in like that 6th spot, that could be good. Jenny. A lot of us picked Jenny to be the last place person, and we'll see. But fun stuff as always, sir. I hope we have another great week. I hope we have some epic matchups in the playoffs. I hope we see some monster scores out of Alaska and Lostness, and then maybe Broik and them everyone else has iffy weeks. So that way, those bottom 8 guys, if they could all be within like 40 points of each other, that'd be really fun to see too, heading into championship week. But yeah, semifinal week. Semifinals are almost more stressful than the championship.
When it's that close, yeah.
The championship is just like, all right, here, obviously, but you're like, at least you're there. Like you have your shot.
Right. Yeah, making the playoffs
is like, oh, if I would have just started this guy, and then you see what you score the next week, you're like, I would have won. Like, so
Right.
yeah,
Yeah,
but I'm looking to get back to the championship for the second year in a row. Leon, second time in 3 years. JP, second time in 4 years. And Tlougan, I think you're looking for your first appearance since you won it all.
that was like the first year of the Empire Pot, maybe.
Yeah, that was before. I
So-
think that was even before we had an Empire Pot. But that was when you had Odell Beckham as a keeper that I traded you the year before. Idiot.
Yeah, you've been known to make some interesting decisions, but
Well, I always just trade
regardless,
young guys because they always have value, and
yeah,
that was before Beckham had really blown up. He had just shown like some solid play, and I think you gave me like Calvin Johnson or something. So it was like I got someone good back because I was trying to make a run, and then I just sucked.
you got a good memory because that's like over a decade ago. But been a hell of a season, boys. I love seeing all the chat going on. I'll be out in the field again this week, so I live through you guys. So keep the talk coming. Hype up our teams. Hype up the scores. Love to see it.
I will say you should do what Laska does. I've done it too, where if you have like one AirPod, even just throw it in, and then you don't have to like be listening to anything unless you have like the Vikings game on. But you can literally just have it, and then every time a text comes through, Siri just reads it in her voice, and it's quite entertaining. I'm not gonna lie, especially when you get Bright going.
Yeah, I bet.
You suck, snorkelhead. Like, just whatever Bright says in his Brightisms.
He's the best. Wouldn't be the same without him in this league. Same goes for everybody. So much love. Good luck, Bauer. Good luck.
Good luck to you, sir. Good luck, JP and Leon. Let's have a high scoring week. Let's have some just epic battles, and let's see who will get a shot at immortality next week.
You get your name on the plaque. You get known as a champion. It's a big deal, man. It's a big deal. So, all right, stay safe, stay healthy. Good luck, boys.